The British government is considering advancing its goal of spending 3% of GDP on defence. This comes after a recent budget increase, which raised the target to 2.5% by 2027. Starmer acknowledged that rising costs in defence would require the country to speed up spending. The UK currently spends 2.3% of GDP on defence, above NATO's 2% guideline. However, pressure from the US and NATO has led Britain to reconsider its targets. The government is also focused on balancing its budget while increasing defence funding, despite financial constraints. Let's listen in.
4-year anniversary of the start of the conflict in Ukraine. We want a just and lasting peace, but that will not extinguish the Russian threat. And we need to be alert to that, because that's going to affect every single person in this room, every single person in this country. So we need to step up. That means on defence spending, we need to go faster. We've obviously made commitments already in relation to that.
We are now being joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao, who's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joining us from Tokyo. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. As we just heard, that the Prime Minister Keir Starmer may be feeling growing pressure from the US and NATO. That's why he's feeling the need to up his defence spending. But what do you think are the main reason that Starmer must believe that he must accelerate it right now? Do you think it's because of the US? Do you think it's because of NATO? Or do you think it's just a mix of combination of everything going on right now?
UK has took the charge of the defense or military issue in Europe for a long time, so that's why they understand how important the military issue is. Recently, not only the UK but also Germany, France, or other European countries start to feel that they need military power, and over-reliance on the United States is not good. But the gap is very big because, for example, the United States has 3,000 combat-capable military planes, but in this case, the British has only 200, France has 200, Germany has 200. So if the combined forces are formed by the British, France, and Germany, total number is only 600, but the US has 3,000. So such kind of the big gap exists. So if the European countries start to realize how important to avoid the over-reliance on the United States, they should show the very strong effort to do that. Just 5% of the GDP is a small thing, just a beginning. And in this case, generally, to build up the military power, they need to spend a long time. For example, the building warship demand 5 years from design to build and deployment. So 5 years, after that they start to train and deploy, and so to operate the weapon effectively, they need 10 years, 20 years, something like that is needed. So this is just the beginning, and they realize how serious. So that's why the Prime Minister emphasis how important to start the military build-up just now, and the result of this build-up will come at least 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, something like that. That's why they need to do that.
And what impact could faster defence spending have on the UK's role within NATO and European security policy?
In European security, indeed, the UK took the charge of the military for a long time. For example, France deployed some certain number of the troops, Germany deployed some certain number of the troops. In this case, UK takes charge more than the France and Germany. So that's why the UK's role in the Europe is very important in this case. Even if the Brexit and leave from the EU, still the NATO's framework or EU's defense cooperation, the UK's role is important. So that's why UK very strongly say this is very important. So this is not just a pressure from the United States. Indeed, this is true. If the European countries lead world affairs now, in this case, European must rebuild their military power is the truth. So that's what, but for example, one of the example to build up how long they need is Winston Churchill pointed out military industry demand 4 years process. First year just investment, second year the small production, third year the mass production, fourth year flood of production. So that's why at least 4 years is needed, but at least 3 years is needed to get many weapons. So from this, if the European countries start to build up this military, the first weapon they will receive is 3 years later. And so that's why they